straight away that I am going to be missing free practice 1 and free practice 2, but I will totally catch up with you all on free practice 3, qualifying, and the race, so there will be videos for those, just not free practice 1 and 2. Not only is there a championship fight going to happen at the last race, but also there are many battles to be won in terms of the Constructors' Championship positions for majority of the teams actually, and that's really exciting. It's not just happening all at the front of the field. There's just a lot happening in general, so I'm going to talk a lot more about that rather than which team suits this track better, because you will see so many articles about that online, and I just want to keep this preview quite short this time around. So let's take a look at the track. This is a twilight race, so it goes from evening into the night. It's the only twilight race, but it does sort of count as a night race as well. 21 corners anti-clockwise, you've got 2 DRS activation zones, 55 laps, the circuit length is 5.554 kilometers. The tyre choices for Abu Dhabi are the yellow softs, the red super softs, and the purple ultra softs. And here you can see the elevation changes. Also worth noting that it should be quite a dry race. It usually is. And during the night the temperatures do get much cooler as well. So we saw an absolutely incredible Brazilian Grand Prix. It's known as the Brazil Grand Prix, but I just call it the Brazilian Grand Prix. Just sounds better, it just rolls off the tongue. So it was a fantastic race. We saw many battles, and Max Verstappen really was the talking point, I felt, of that race, because he has this incredible skill and something just very special. In fact, his father even said that, you know, he surprised him. And, you know, Max has come under a lot of criticism this year, but I just feel like, you know, that's his driving style, and he pulled some incredible overtaking maneuvers in some very difficult conditions. That is something you see drivers with experience often struggling to do. This kid is a kid. It's incredible. It's just amazing. Anyways, so could Max Verstappen, of course, play a part in what happens with the title championship battle? Apparently Toto Wolff even called his father. You know, if there was no Max Verstappen in Formula 1 currently, you have to question how you would probably feel about Formula 1, because he's really made it more exciting in my opinion. I was just thinking about this, like, what if there was no Max Verstappen in Brazil? Like how the race would have just looked so different. I mean, maybe even more boring. So with the title championship, Nico Rosberg just needs a P3 and he's got the title. So he's obviously leading the championship currently, and he has advantage. He really does. All he has to do is he has to get himself onto that podium, and he is the champion. But we all know Lewis Hamilton is very, very strong. We all know that anything can happen in a Formula 1 race. It's long. Speaking of Max Verstappen, actually, I think this brings us nicely onto Sauber. So on his right is his engineer, Chevy, who was, I mean, a huge part of his rookie year. Obviously, he was his engineer at Toro Rosso. He's a very talented race engineer, and he recently just went to Sauber. He was actually, I think he was let go from Toro Rosso. There was some kind of argument between him and Franz Tost and Toro Rosso for something that actually happened in one of the races, a call that was being made. So he is now at Sauber. And at the Brazilian Grand Prix, of course, Brazilian driver Felipe Nasser, he actually scored 2 points. These 2 points are worth approximately 30 million, I believe. I think it's euros, if not dollars. And that's huge because, of course, Manor have already scored a point this season. Now, a part of the decisions, of course, that were being made were, of course, the race engineers and the team, and, you know, part of this went to Chevy and also Ruth Buscombe, who is a very, very talented race engineer. She was at Haas actually this year when Haas actually scored, what was it, their 5th and 6th place finishes, which were the highest finishes, and of course, you know, they were a rookie team. Like, that was absolutely incredible to see. So, you know, the new recruitments that have gone down at Sauber are really, really looking to pay off, and absolutely fantastic to see that a team that we thought are just sinking and sinking and singing are slowly just having their head above the water. That's really, really nice to see. I truly hope they have a great season next season. I know I'm looking to next season, I should be looking to the next race, but you know, they got a Ferrari engine, which is this season's Ferrari engine in next season's car, and I just hope that, you know, they don't struggle next season, because this year they've struggled so much, and luckily they've just about pulled their weight, because it is going to be difficult for Manor to score a point in the next race. I believe they might need more than 1 point to secure 10th in the championship, but incredible performance by Sauber. This is exactly when they needed it, and they totally did it at the right time. Also in the last race, amazing performance by Esteban Ocon. It just shows how these young drivers, they're young, but they have so much confidence. It's really amazing to see, and of course he's going to be at Force India next season. Speaking of Force India, really amazing last Grand Prix weekend for them. Of course they're in the battle with Williams, and you know, I don't know if Hulkenberg is just cursed off a podium, but you know, he really could have got it, and Perez was very close as well. But in terms of securing 4th place, they're in a very strong position, so that's definitely something to look out for in Abu Dhabi. I'm sure Williams is going to be battling very hard with them. I just want to talk a little bit more about Ferrari now. They're currently on 375 points, Red Bull are on 446. It looks as though... Actually, never mind, I just worked it out. Obviously, if Ferrari score a first and a second place and Red Bull score no points, still Red Bull are going to be second in the Constructors and Ferrari third. It's mathematically not possible for Ferrari to be P2 in the Constructors anymore. So that's that. But looking down to Force India and Williams, obviously, Force India really pulled a big gap to Williams. So again, it is possible, but it's quite a big gap, and they're looking very strong for 4th position. Also, a good gap between McLaren, Honda and Toro Rosso. That's pretty much possible for them to also switch positions in the championship. And as for Haas, I think they're going to stay where they are, 8th, and Renault most likely are going to stay 9th. But this is another one to look forward to. Sauber and Manor. It doesn't look like Manor are actually going to overhaul them. The race looks to be dry, but you know, depends what happens in the race. They might get lucky or something like that, but you have to remember, I think Manor need to score 2 points, because it really does depend on other finishes as well. If they both have 2 points, who finishes higher up in some of the other races, so that will matter as well. And finally, with just one race to go, which I can't even believe oh my god, I genuinely can't believe we're at the end of the season. This season seems to have flown by way quicker than any other season I can even remember, and I'm not even sure why that is, but we have one race left. So, of course, the Drivers' Championship has not been decided yet. I've talked about that, so I'm not going to talk about it anymore, but Nico Rosberg does have a bit more of an advantage than Lewis Hamilton. He just needs to finish on the podium. Then you've got Daniel Ricciardo. I believe he's also secured 3rd in the Constructors, and then the real battle here is between Vettel and Verstappen for the drivers' standings. Now, the impressive thing is that Max Verstappen did do 4 races in a Toro Rosso, but of course Sebastian Vettel's had his fair share of issues this whole season as well, but just 5 points between them, so really anything can happen. And then you've got Kimi Raikkonen, 178 points, but what's really exciting is that Sergio Perez could secure 7th in the the drivers. If I say constructors, I'm really sorry, I'm just getting them all muddled up. But 97 points, then Valtteri Bottas 85, you've got Nico Hulkenberg 66, Fernando Alonso 53, so it's pretty close between them, and a big result, you know, could totally just elevate them more, you know, knock them down the rankings if they don't have a good race in Abu Dhabi. All I'm going to say is thank God we don't have double points. That was the most pointless thing ever. And you know, the championship, when was it? Not last year, I think the year before that, I think they had double points, or was it last year? It was almost decided. It could have been decided on double points. Luckily it wasn't. But Felipe Massa and Fernando Alonso very close as well, looking to secure 10th place. Further down the field, you've got Carlos Sainz, Romain Grosjean. So Grosjean and Kvyat and Button are very close together. And then you've got Kevin Magnussen, you've got Felipe Nasser, who scored 2 fantastic points. That's taken him all the way from, I think he was somewhere, I think he was maybe 21st or 22nd. That took him all the way up to 17th. in the drivers' standings, which bumped Sauber up to 10th in the constructors, which is a huge result. And Jolyon Palmer, who's also scored a point, Pascal Wehrlein and Stoffel van Dorn, who currently is not racing, but he will be next season. Then you've got Esteban Gutierrez, who is incredibly frustrated, might not even be on the grid next season. He hasn't scored any points. He's only had 1 points finishes in his entire career so far, which was in 2013 when Nico Hülkenberg was his teammate back at Sauber. Marcus Ericsson also hasn't scored any points. He's most likely going to stay with Sauber. His backers are linked to those that actually acquired Sauber this year. So most likely going to stay there. Then you've got Esteban Ocon, who's going to go to Force India next season. Obviously he's in the Manor, and that is a tricky car because it's at the back of the grid. Pascal Wehrlein did, however, score, which was important for them, but obviously it does knock them down back to 11th place in the constructors, but it does mean that every single team has scored this season so far. And then you've got Rio Haryanto, who of course is no longer racing with Manor right now. Could be back next season, but that was all mainly money problems. But aside from that, that is my Abu Dhabi Grand Prix preview. Not the most in-depth, but I just wanted to talk more about the drivers and the constructors and the numbers